in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our special Power Retail webinar today. My name is Grant Arnott. I'm the publisher of Power Retail, and I'm pleased to be presenting this webinar today thanks to Visual Website Optimizer, VWO. It's an extremely important and relevant topic, and the phrase always be testing is a mantra every e-commerce professional should be adopting. We're going to prove that today with an incredible case study on Deluxe Products and what they achieved through A/B testing. We'll follow that up with 5 conversion tips, and then you'll also have the opportunity to ask questions of our panel of e-commerce experts. Our panelists today are Winston Chu, Managing Director of Deluxe Products, Nathan Stewart, the CEO of digital marketing agency Alchemy, and Siddharth Deswal, the Senior Marketer at VWO. So Visual Website Optimizer is an easy-to-use A/B testing tool featuring a point-and-click WYSIWYG editor for creating A/B tests. In addition to being a dead simple split testing software for marketers, it also dramatically shortens time to go live with your A/B tests because of minimum dependence on it. And Alchemy, fine-tune your website, small change, big results, statistical certainty. Alchemy is Australia's leading conversion rate optimization agency, and they're proudly VWO's exclusive premium partner within Australia. But it's what they do with the software that drives the results. Alchemy have helped over 400 e-commerce businesses within Australia turn website visitors into customers. At any point in time, Alchemy has hundreds of live tests running across various industry verticals, so we have solid experience on what works and what doesn't. And they'd be happy to share our experience and help you get the most out of VWO and website testing, and they're going to present a great case study today. The business that we're studying today is Deluxe Products, and I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Winston Chu to speak about Deluxe Products. Over to you, Winston.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah, Deluxe Products imports furniture and appliances and sells direct to the end user here in Australia. Our company slogan is from the factory to your door. So what we do is look for the best products we can find, and then we work out the most efficient and cost-effective methods to get the products from the factory to our clients and customers. By doing this, we are able to offer products at 40 to 60% below retail prices. So what you may find selling for $1,000 in the retail stores, you can buy from us for $500 with at least the same, if not better quality and features. We've got a showroom here in Seven Hills and warehouses in Sydney and Melbourne. A large chunk of our sales are from the internet, and in particular our website. So a while ago we looked at our website data and we found that traffic was increasing, but conversion rates were dropping. So we talked to the guys at Alchemy to help us increase our conversion rates through A/B testing on our website. Alchemy had achieved some great results for us before, and Nathan and the team are extremely knowledgeable and experienced in conversion optimization and testing. So they were the first choice for us when we were looking to do this project. VWO is probably the best platform on the market for this A/B testing, but knowing what to test and knowing what is going to give us the best results is the key.
All right. Thanks a lot, Winston. Now I'm just going to hand over to Nathan Stewart to take you through exactly how they went about it.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. So yeah, obviously Alchemy's had the pleasure of working with Winston and Deluxe Products for the last couple of years now, and it's been really great to see their business grow and evolve in a fairly competitive marketplace. With Winston's permission today, we're actually going to go through one of the product page tests that we've run for Deluxe Products. So this is going to be a fairly sort of practical presentation. I'm literally going to walk you through the rationale behind the strategy, the results that we generated, and ultimately the financial impact that had on Deluxe Products as a business. To be successful in online marketing, you absolutely have to be evolving. I mean, I've been in e-commerce and online marketing now for about 18 years, and really evolution is the key to some of our clients' success. Evolution is about lots of small incremental changes, and for those of you that sort of studied biology at school, you'd know in nature the speed at which a species can evolve often affects the likelihood of their survival long term. And in e-commerce, in my experience, it's no different. So the speed at which a an online business can learn and evolve will definitely lead to a competitive advantage. The problem is that I still frequently see Australian websites, or website owners, I should say, literally upgrade their website, and launch an entirely new site. And really what they're doing is sort of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and they don't necessarily know which parts of their website are the high-performing parts and which are the low-performing parts. You imagine if Amazon was to do that. There's no way they would do that because there's so much learnings that have gone into where they are today. So they're more likely to evolve with lots of little incremental changes. So Australia still, for the most part, we're seeing people learn to evolve gradually rather than sort of do these blanket site upgrades. Testing as a concept is ultimately about fine-tuning your website with lots of small changes, getting big results, but really backed by statistical certainty. And in my line of business, where we're doing conversion rate optimization, it's a lot about change management. And what I like most about testing as a strategy that we employ is that we have that statistical data to back up our every decision. So obviously. Testing is a process of seeing what wins and what loses, and nice to say that 100% of the time we get winners. Sometimes you do get losers as well, but I guess the goal, by getting that statistical certainty, it helps with the change management within some of our clients and really helping them believe in what we're doing, and that's part of it, keeping that momentum to constantly be evolving. In this example that I'm going to run you through right now, we basically did a product page test. For those of you that are in e-commerce, I'm sure you know the importance of a product page. It obviously, in most instances, is actually a landing page for a website. So the misconception that home pages are probably the most important template is not really true. Generally, a product page is a very critical template because it's often a landing page as well. It also is generally what persuades people to take that critical step of adding a product to cart, which is a fairly big moment of truth in a user's buying process. So getting people to actually add the product to cart is critical. So I'm going to walk you through this these next few slides and really just show you through exactly what we did. So the first page that and this is what we call the control, so this is what the page looked like back in January 2015. And you can see it was a sort of fairly, it wasn't a horrendous product page by any means. I mean, it had a lot of the key things you would typically see on a product page. If anything, it was a little cluttered, and more often than not in conversion rate optimization, we're actually taking elements off the page rather than adding elements to the page. Visual clarity is really important, and knowing what action you want people to take and making that one principal action very clear in people's minds. Grant, if we could just go to the next slide, please. So I'll talk you through the variation that we ultimately employed. Now, bearing in mind we did actually present and test multiple variations to get to this point, but this was the variation that got the best results, and I'm going to walk you through what was different between this and the original. So first of all, you can see right up the top with that lowest price guarantee and the 12 months warranty, we actually added a warranty seal, and certainly in Australia, with a lot of people importing products from overseas and not necessarily having that warranty, that's a critical component. I've just noticed we've got the poll coming up. Grant, do you want to do the poll now? Is that?
Yeah, sure thing, Nathan. So just for everyone's reference, I was meant to do that right at the start of the presentation, actually, and I just remembered it now. But yeah, we'd just love to get a gauge of who's doing what level of testing, what level of MBT, or basically how you're determining the design of your page, I think is what we're trying to get out of that. So thanks, we're seeing quite a few responses coming through already. And yeah, Nathan will use that intelligence to help guide the content from here. So sorry for not starting that earlier, but thanks for your input, guys. Over back to you.
Grant. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so basically, in terms of the actual product page itself, we added that visual warranty seal added some numbers to the sort of buying area. We made the buying area stand out, and I think that's, and when I say the buying area, that's sort of the critical area that's got the price in it, the any discount, whether the product's in stock, and ultimately you've got the add to cart button as part of it. And I think that's critical to really get people to focus on that. And on the original page, that was sort of had a white background. On the winning variable, it actually had a sort of shaded in area, and that was a big part towards what made it successful. We removed the social sharing buttons, and this is always an interesting one. Because obviously, social engagement and social reviews and so forth can be very valuable as a social proof, I suppose. But in this case, we actually chose to remove it and test, what this variable did without that sort of, if you like, distraction away from that add to cart button. We added free in-store pickup, and for many of the omni-channel retailers, you'd know that click and collect type models are becoming incredibly important and very, very, very popular. In my experience, that's something we see all the time, where the click and the collect is just increasing in popularity as it's being serviced accordingly. And Winston and his team have actually got multiple points of pickup these days in Melbourne and Sydney, and that's becoming quite popular as well. We added the chat bubble, the have a question, and this really appeals to the humanistic website visitors, people that really want to know that if they do have a question, they can actually call someone and get some sort of response. It doesn't necessarily mean they use it, but they just like to know there's someone real behind the website that they can actually talk to. It's an added a point of action assurance, if you like. If we can just move to the next. Oh, just go back one slide, please. Yeah, that's great. So the next thing was the estimated delivery. One of the biggest problems we see in a lot of websites is the delivery costs sort of get calculated as part of the shopping cart and the checkout process. And I think consumers these days are well aware that if it's not free delivery being offered, they want to know the upfront the actual delivery costs, and they're well aware that that becomes part of the real cost of the product to them as the buyer. So we've actually brought that sort of forward and made it possible for people to actually calculate that in advance. And we actually used some location-based IP address to detect where they are and start estimating that delivery costs. Interestingly enough, you would have seen that we removed the left-hand navigation bar. There was a fairly large navigation bar on the left-hand side, and that was a big change to this page. And again, it was, I think, part of what made the clarity of the page a lot simpler. And if anything, we replaced it with a sort of an upsell and cross-sell section on the right-hand side with very complementary products to the product you're buying. So replace it with some more relevant information that may appeal to the buyer as they go through. But overall, the design was made a lot clearer. And there was one last change that I really should mention here, and that is that the savings, which on this page you can see it's quite small, but it says 63%. We changed the savings to a percentage rather than a dollar off amount. And most offline retailers, when you walk into a retailer store, would have that 20, 30, 40% off sale, and people in their minds can sort of resonate with what that actually means, how significant a savings that is. But if you actually put a dollars off, they actually have to calculate in their mind what percentage off that is, and we find that certainly in most of the tests that we run, it makes sense that you put a percentage off rather than a sort of $20 off or something of the sorts. If we move to the next slide, please, Grant. So what was the sort of process that we went through to actually set up this test? And that was, initially we obviously had to come up with some variations and ultimately selected to test the product page itself. We came up with 4 alternate variations of the product page template, and we decided to run the test site-wide across all product pages. So within the testing software, obviously you do have the ability to only test a percentage of your audience, and that will ultimately mean that it takes normally longer to run a test. We would like to sort of generally favour having the test running, getting a nice volume of data into the test so that we can reach that statistical certainty a lot quicker. The test was designed and exposed to desktop visitors only. Again, we often do mobile tests as well, and I think everyone here would probably realise that often about 40% of website traffic these days comes from mobile devices. So it would also be important to run similar testing on a mobile device to make sure that you're optimizing for that as well. Conversion rate lifts are obviously going to be quite significant if you get your desktop right, but where the game can be won and lost is if you get your mobile right as well. We often see mobile conversion rates are about half that of a desktop conversion rate, so there's a lot of room for improvement in mobile sites and mobile optimization. The test was exposed to 100% of all available product-based traffic, as I mentioned, and ultimately exposed to 36,536 unique visitors to give you an idea of the sort of volume. Volume is important in testing. If you have a very low volume, it's not like you can't do testing, but you ultimately it takes longer to derive a result. So you have to be a little bit more selective about what tests you do and how much traffic you put into that test and which pages you're perhaps doing the testing on. So arguably the more traffic the better. Deluxe Products, with Visual Website Optimizer, we've worked with some very, very large companies in Australia using Visual Website Optimizer and some very small ones as well. Deluxe Products sort of middle of the range, I suppose, in terms of traffic volume, but growing its traffic very, very quickly, and that's been great for us in terms of accelerating our testing capabilities. So Alchemy tracked the following goals in the conversion funnel. We actually tracked the goals through to the shopping cart, the checkout, the purchase, and ultimately revenue to really work out how this was, what sort of impact this was having. And it should be important to note that there was a few actual online shopping promotional events that were on throughout this period, which do affect results, and you've got to be aware of that when you're running a test. What traffic sources are likely to change as you're going through and doing through that test period. If there's any significant changes, they can have an impact on the test results, and you may choose to run the test a little bit longer than you would ordinarily. If we could go to the next slide, please, Grant. So the first result that I wanted to walk you through was that the actual percentage of people that reached the cart actually dropped, which is an interesting thing because most people make the assumption that if you want to improve your overall conversion rate, the goal would be to get as many people into the cart as possible. And what we actually did here was because we brought some of the information forward, and made things like the free in-store pickup, the delivery details, we did a lot of things to actually make, I guess, their purchasing decision a little bit easier on the product page itself. But what that ultimately meant is people didn't, the unqualified customers, if you like, didn't need to enter the cart itself to actually find out that information and then ultimately abandon. So what we actually saw here, there's the number of people entering the cart actually dropped by 2.5%, which is interesting because if as I said, normally the assumption is that the more people into the cart, the better. If we can just go to the next slide, please. So what this slide shows is that version 4 achieved a 14.4% increase to the conversion rate of the product pages. So actually what we're looking at is the percentage of people that were on the product page that ultimately converted and purchased. And that was an increase of 14.4%. Now, you can see that there were quite a few changes that we made, and we're going to reflect on that in a minute again. I'm going to show you side by side the two pages, the original and the variation, but there were quite a few changes that we made. It wasn't sort of just one or two very small changes. We did make a few significant changes, but as a result we're very happy with the result of 14.4% increase to that conversion rate. moving right along. And I should just say, you can see there's 92% confidence there. If you can see right down the bottom, there's a sort of confidence rating, and that means there's a 92% chance of this variation consistently beating the original. And that's what we like to see, sort of confidence ratings, ideally above 90%. In some cases, we don't rely on it being as high as that, but obviously the higher the confidence rating, the more likely you've got of achieving the success once it's put live permanently. Sorry, thanks, Grant. So what did this mean all in terms of revenue? So the control product page was for the same period achieving $194,707 in revenue, which the average revenue per visitor was $14, whereas the variation 4 achieved $218,829. So basically the average revenue per visitor rised to $16. So what this equates to, and if you sort of extrapolate this out over an annual period, this equates to an extra $313,500 in additional revenue for Deluxe Products, which is a huge win. Given when you think about it, it's really only one product test that we've run, and obviously we're running multiple tests on Deluxe Products, and it's a great outcome. It means ultimately their acquisition cost reduces, and with the rising cost of traffic, that's a huge factor. So it's we're very proud of this result. This is sort of a typical result you do see with testing. Around that, if you can get sort of a 10% rise per test, that is a really good outcome, and I think it's building up lots of those little sort of 5, 10, 15% rises is all going to add up, and ultimately you're going to have that overall site-wide conversion rate lift. Next slide, please, Grant. So just looking at it side by side, basically you can see the original versus the winning variation. I think you can clearly see there's quite a bit of additional clarity in the winning variation. As I said, the shading of that buying area makes it stand out a little bit more. Sort of the in stock is highlighted with that green tick. Interestingly, we changed the button from the add to cart being green to add to cart being a sort of the orangey color. I should say that we used to, as a company, feel that green means go, red means stop. I guess orange is pretty neutral, but there's a bit of psychology around colors that we've tested time and time again. But what tends to be the general theory we go by now is that it's more about the contrast and making that actual button very obvious than it is about the color itself. So making, as I said, the contrast of that color, and obviously having keys, calls to action, making sure that they do stand out from the rest of the page. So we probably wouldn't have wanted to use that sort of blue color that's sort of representative in the branding. So that's, I mean, again, I think there's, I hope I've covered a few of the things that we've changed here. So if we just go through to the next slide there. So
I think
do you
we're.
want me to do you want me to just quickly mention the results of the poll just for everyone, Grant? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I put them up in the dialog box, but yeah, just to run through them quickly from the poll today. So 59% of you love data and use analytics to inform your decisions. So that was the front runner. 29% are currently doing regular testing using tools like VWO, and 12% would use developers to upgrade your websites, and no one is listening to the boss. That was pretty obvious.
Thanks, Chris.
So, look, Nathan and Winston, congratulations on a great example of the power of A/B testing. I really enjoyed that. I can see some questions coming through, and I'm sure I'll have a few towards the end. But for now, I'd like to hand over to to Siddharth Deswal from VWO, who's going to give us some 5 great tips to increase conversion. So over to you now, Siddharth.
Thanks, Grant. So the first one is about reviews. In our research last year in October, we polled about 1,000 online shoppers. And what we found out was that the majority of them use reviews as either a very important factor or a factor that they're generally looking at when making a purchase decision. It came up over and over again that essentially they wanted to know what their peers or others like themselves thought of the product before buying it. So we found out that the more prominent you make your reviews on a product page and the more you push it out through email, the better the conversions you tend to have, assuming the products are good and the reviews are generally positive. So the best strategies to collect reviews for e-commerce retailers was basically to try and run some contests that would incentivize visitors or users or shoppers to leave a review for the chance of a discount coupon or some kind of a giveaway or some kind of a prize at the end of the contest. We also spoke to some of our other customers who are doing reviews like really well, and they told us that for their highest ticket items, they actually have call centers, that is people calling up the buyer and requesting reviews over phone and taking permission to share it or even put it on the product page themselves. So that's strategy 1, to increase the reviews on a product page. Next slide, please, Grant. The second thing that we found out was that for a lot of abandoned shopping carts, discounts work really well, and this especially for those in the age group of 24 to 35, presumably for whom obviously that discounts would really matter. This trend also went up for those in the age group who are 55 and above. They also seem to value discounts a lot, and if you could show them discounts, or for abandoned shopping cart, if you could send up and a follow-up email or a remarketed discount code on Facebook advertising or Google Display Network, you tend to get some pretty good conversion rates on people coming back and buying the product. Next slide, please. Okay, so the shopping cart is almost always our biggest focus because that is where a very large majority of people tend to drop off. So unexpected shipping costs are the biggest reason why people abandon carts. And the excellent part about the test that Nathan just explained is they actually made the shipping cost more prominent, which means that it might be that after people see a high shipping cost, they might not go ahead, but those who move on to the cart or move on to the purchase decision, their context has been set well, their expectations have already been managed, so they don't feel at the end when they look at the bill that the shipping cost was unexpected. So showing the shipping cost on the product page might lead to lesser visitors adding the product to their cart, but also decreases the likelihood of cart abandonment. The second biggest reason for cart abandonment is having to create an account. Now, Winston, I could not make out if you need or you're requiring users to create an account. Is that something you guys do?
The user has a choice of whether they want to continue with or without creating an account.
All right, perfect. Because creating an account is like having a bit of a relationship with the brand. And many users don't want to do that. They simply want to come, purchase, and move on. And when they're forced to create an account, many of them decide to look elsewhere. Next slide, please. All right. This is another thing that Nathan did in his test. They removed the social sharing widgets. Now, social sharing widgets are almost a de facto on product pages. But when we ran the numbers, what we found out was it's very rare an item that is shared on social media. This especially holds true for certain kinds of products. There are other products like, say, dresses or wedding dresses, especially, that are shared a lot on Pinterest, and this probably will not, this tip will not work over there. But social sharing widgets are usually synchronously loaded, which means they slow down the website. Plus, there's a huge opportunity cost of them taking up a lot of space on product pages and sometimes even be looking like distractions. So it actually makes sense to remove the social sharing widgets since most people are not using them anyway and use that screen space for something else. And next slide, please, Grant. And finally, feel free to throw all of these tips to the wind because what really matters is the A/B testing that you do yourself. When A/B testing, please don't think of it as creating a change to the page, but the way we actually approach A/B testing is that you're creating a change in the way people perceive and think and make decisions, and you essentially want to optimize their decision-making process. That's it for me, Grant. Thank you.
Very much, Siddharth, and to all our panelists there. So some great insights. We now have some time to run through some questions from everyone that I'm happy to put to the panelists, and I'll finish up on the sponsors slide there. But look, I've just got one. I guess I'll put this to Nathan first. In terms of the duration that you should run tests, is there any guidance you'd have as to the appropriate length of running a testing program?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Generally speaking, there's sort of two key variables that determine the duration. You're going to have to run a test to get that statistical certainty of above 90%. Normally, the two factors are, one, how much traffic that actual page that you're testing has going to it, or the template that you are testing has going to it. And the second factor is how big a point of difference the test variation is to the original. So if there's a lot of difference between the two variables, normally the I guess the testing algorithm will calculate statistical certainty a lot faster. Whereas if it's a very small minor change, it may take longer to run that test. VWO does actually provide a sort of a testing time frame calculator, which is really handy, and it's a nice guide to pump in some of those details to get a feel for how long the test will ultimately run for. And I mean, to give you a rough idea, normally we would see a test run for about maybe a month, maybe sort of 5-6 weeks. It would be sort of the maximum. But generally speaking, about a month is a good test time frame, depending on traffic and, as I said, the difference in the testing variables.
And that's what I wanted to address next in terms of the traffic volumes. Is there a sort of a minimum viability where a test will work in terms of say monthly traffic volumes or daily traffic volumes?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. I mean, if you again, it sort of comes down to more individual pages rather than site-wide traffic volumes. But I suppose if you had upwards of sort of 10,000 visitors a month, that might be a good starting point for getting quick test results. But that's not to say you can't do straight A/B testing with less than that. And as I said, if you had big enough changes to your site happening, you would still get good results in less than that. But if we use 10,000 visitors, a month is probably a rough guide.
All right. Look, I might put a question to Winston now. This result sounds phenomenal. Was it anything like what you were expecting? What were sort of your expectations of this exercise versus what the outcome was?
Yeah, that's a good one. It was quite interesting to see the results of this test because we didn't expect that a lower conversion rate would give us a better result in the end, to be honest. So it was very interesting, and I was a little bit concerned for a while, but when I looked more at the data and looked at the numbers coming out of the shopping cart who completed the shopping cart, then I was quite comfortable that we got a good result here, and you know, that 14% increase was quite good. I mean, I would have been happy with a 10%. So,
Yeah.
like Nathan said, you know, we would expect around 10%, but having the 14% is fantastic.
Okay. Look, a question now for, I think we'll put this to both Siddharth and Nathan. In terms of testing results, I'll also comment on something I saw presented by Kogan. It was a year or so ago, talking about testing, and he said he went out and deliberately tested exactly the same page and ran, you know, through the A/B testing principles and got one page that was clearly ahead of the other. So I guess, are there factors that will skew the results, and what are some of the common causes that you see that might skew test results that people need to be aware of and avoid?
Siddharth, do you want to have a
Okay.
go at that first, and then I'll launch in?
Yeah, sure. Um, so some of the things that actually skew results are one is events that happen in real life. So, for example, I believe that in this particular test, there were a few events that happened during the testing period. And it's important to ride out that time. That is, keep running the test after an online event, a holiday, or something's happened. The second is if you start running a few campaigns, that is marketing campaigns, and bring in a different traffic source. So essentially, what will skew test results is either people behaving differently, and why are they behaving differently? Is it a different kind of person, or is it a different context with which they've arrived? The second reason why test results get skewed is because of technology, or because something's not set up right, or because one of your control or your variation or your website as a whole is taking too long to load. So the primary reason, most people have their technological this thing set up quite well. So the primary reason would be people behaving differently, and why, or you want to figure out are they the right kind of people or a different mix of people, and why is their behavior different? That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Siddharth has covered the key points. Really, the big one for us is the change in traffic sources. Not so much traffic numbers, but the actual source of the traffic. You know, so for example, email traffic tends to drive higher conversion rates if you've got a good relationship with your list. If suddenly you dumped a lot of email traffic in mid-test into your site, that might skew the results, and you'd want to run it for a little bit longer, really, just to see it how it pans out over a longer period of time.
Okay, so another question being asked here just around this particular experiment. Were telesales involved and measured with the sales results for Deluxe?
Yeah, no, they weren't. I mean, we do measure the actual telephone inquiries that we do with Deluxe products, but not in terms of the actual the test results itself. So this was purely online sales being affected.
Okay. One for you, Siddharth, something that you were talking about. I think it was your conversion rate improvement tip number one around reviews and incentivizing reviews. So is there a view that that can also skew the authenticity of the reviews, or does it tend to work pretty well in terms of driving up conversions?
It can skew the authenticity. It does happen. Obviously, there has to be a balanced approach to, incentivizing reviews. But generally speaking, most people can make out, or most savvy visitors can make out when they find out reviews that are gamed, or reviews that don't come across as authentic, or have been just written for the sake of it. But I guess other forms of, or a system having an inbuilt form of, finding out if someone's spamming the system or not would be useful over here.
Okay. Well, looks like there's no further questions from the audience there, so a bit of a quieter bunch than we normally get today. So unless anyone has any further to add while I'm talking. I'll just keep my eye out. But look, I'd like to thank our panelists today. I'd like to thank Winston Chu from Deluxe Products for sharing some great insights into the business there and how this particular test transformed things. Thanks to Nathan Stewart from Alchemy for running us through that particular project and got some great insights there. And also to Siddharth Deswal from VWO for some great conversion rate tips as well. Before we finish up, I've just got one last question that we'll finish up on that I'll put to yourself, Siddharth. And the question is simply, what should you consider when considering an A/B test?
Impact. What should you consider when considering an A/B test? I'd consider the impact. And in the case of today's case study, I think Nathan's picked up the one area on an e-commerce page that has the most impact on revenue and sales.
Yeah, so really prioritize in order of, okay, what is the area of most critical
Exactly.
you need to improve?
Yes.
Sure.
Can I just add to that, Grant? Basically, the thing is when you purchase something like VWO as a testing tool, that sort of empowers you to do testing. The critical thing is to know, where, like which parts of the site to test on and what variables are actually going to beat what's there now. If you don't know that, then you can spend a lot of time doing testing and not evolving, not getting better. And we see some of our clients that have sort of dabbled in testing themselves find that they're really sort of getting very marginal results because they're sort of testing fairly average alternatives with what they've got now. And so the key is to really drill down on which part of the site is going to get that impact and know what alternatives are going to beat what you've got there now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that's a really valid point. One of the sites I enjoy subscribing to is, I'm sure you guys know of it, is Which Test One, and it's great to have a look at these simple tests that they put up on a daily basis, where you can vote on what your intuition tells you would have been the winning the winning test, A or B, or the winning page. And it's amazing how often it's very counter to what your intuition would tell you. And I'm sure you guys might want to comment, but I'm sure that's something that you see daily in the work that you do in terms of that. You can't. I've heard a great saying: you can't trust it, test it. And how does that ring true for what you guys see in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, we still get surprised at some of the results we're running when, as I said in the presentation, we're running hundreds of tests at any one point in time, and there's always a percentage of those that are a bit of a surprise, and you think, wow, I wasn't expecting that, and we've been doing this for years. So, it definitely makes sense to do testing, and as I said, it just creates that momentum in the organisation because you've got that statistical certainty to back everything up. I mean, no one can argue with a very statistical, proven result. I mean, it's not an opinion anymore. It's a very simple, test backed up by data, and it helps create that momentum.
Absolutely. All right. Well, look, thanks everyone once again for sitting in this afternoon. Some excellent content there. We've recorded it all, and so we will get that ready and posted onto Power Retail very soon. For those who might have missed out on the webinar today, we'll get back to them. But thanks again to all our panelists. Hope everyone enjoyed that today. I certainly did, and appreciate your time. And we'll keep going with the next one. We've got another webinar coming up at the end of next month around using Williams-Sonoma as a case study, so look forward to that one too. Thanks again, and we'll check back soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.